It's that time of the week again to talk BYU football with BYU team captain Connor Pay. What went wrong against TCU from his perspective, and what can change as they get ready for Texas Tech and homecoming this Saturday? We're talking about all of it next.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU sports. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more with our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. Please welcome in now a BYU team captain, Connor Pay, for his weekly visit here on the podcast. Connor, how are you, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing great. So obviously a disappointing loss against TCU on Saturday. And we've talked in the past after the Kansas game, we said that nobody takes these losses harder than you guys inside the building. And I know fans are obviously going to take it hard, but just give me a sense. What did you make of what happened on Saturday?
I mean, embarrassing, is kind of the first thought, that comes to mind. Just to go out and perform the way we did was just embarrassing for us, individually, as a team, for all the fans too. And so, I mean, it just, everything that could go wrong for us in that game kind of did. And, we kind of, throughout the season, when the offense has struggled, the defense has stepped up. And when the defense has struggled, the offense has stepped up. And we've kind of, helped each other out, had each other's backs. And, when you both go the wrong direction, that's, it's kind of a tough thing. And, obviously just have to keep moving forward. Life goes on. There's another game the next week, thankfully for us. And, a chance to bounce back and, perform better.
Now, contrary to popular belief, you guys did have a game plan going into this game. There were some erroneous fans out there saying, did they just take the week off? No, they did not take the week off, folks. But you mentioned the fact that it seems like at times one side of the ball can bow the other side up. But as you mentioned, when both seemingly backslide and struggle on any given day, that's the result. You lose a big time 44-11, the final, obviously. Now, when it comes to what the plane ride home was like, I'm going to venture a guess that it was pretty quiet on that plane.
Yeah, it definitely didn't have the same energy that you would after a win, obviously. But, one thing Kalani definitely doesn't want is he doesn't want everyone silent and saying nothing the whole flight. He's like, look, I want you guys to talk and interact so we can kind of start the process to move past it. Just because if you let it drag you down for days on end, and TCU will beat you twice. And, today was kind of our day to where, we go through. It was not a fun day for anybody. And, you kind of have to go through, look in the mirror first, then look at your position groups and everything that went wrong there. And so I think that process kind of started on the flight home, because a lot of us were able to access the game, on the flight and get it on our iPads for the flight home, and kind of just watching it and seeing everything that went wrong. And, guys, obviously you start talking about it there. We got to do this. We got to do this. And so kind of that process, already kind of began on the flight.
So is that position group by position group? Is that you and your seatmates? Like, what were the conversations? Who were they amongst?
Well, I guess the guys that I sit by primarily are like Kingsley and Paul and Keaton and Isaac. And so just kind of as everyone kind of gets the film, starts going through the game, there's different plays. And you guys, some guys do, some guys don't like watching the game on the way home. They want to wait till, they're back and they can kind of sit down and dissect it. But just kind of say like, oh, look what happened on this play. Look what happened on this play. And, it's frustrating to watch a game like that where it's like you watch the play and you have the look you want, and there was just a mistake or two on almost every single play. And, it's hard to just have to sit there and watch that and be like, oh my gosh, if we had done that one thing, that would have been a great play. And so I don't know. It's, a lot of it is just like when you see a play, hey, look at this, or look at this. We should have done this differently. I always screwed this up here. Just you kind of start talking through those things a little bit.
Now, obviously, you're a guy who I assume you were a guy who was just pulling out your iPad and you want to watch it pretty quickly. And you got your first start of the season at center, making the move. And I guess first things first, when did you know you were going to play center, and how would you grade your first start back at your old position?
I found out on about Tuesday. I knew for sure that that's where I was going to play, and then they had me practice there the whole week. And obviously there's so much to improve upon, but I felt like I did pretty well overall, with the scheme they ran, to help us pick up some other things. They left me isolated one-on-one a lot, especially in pass protection. And I felt like I did a solid job doing that. And I think, obviously there are those plays that you watch and it's like, man, could have done this better. There's so many things every week you go through and watch and things you want to fix. But it's hard to say that I felt good about it, just considering everything that was going on. But I don't feel like I played terrible. But it's also at the same time, just given how the game went and the outcome, it's hard to say that I feel like I played well either.
Sure, and I can understand that completely. Now, I want to expand that out. How do you feel like the offensive line performed? And I guess just overall offensively, you talk about the fact that you felt like, okay, I performed okay, but just this with the result combined in it wasn't great. But how do you think the O-line did and the offense as a unit?
Well, whole offense as a unit, pretty terrible. When you only score 11 points in a game, that's pretty poor. Averaging 3rd and 9. Yeah. That's not very good football. You can't expect to convert much on 3rd down when you're playing like that. And so there's not a whole lot of bright spots in a game like that. But I think the O-line played decently well as a unit. Just because, there are some plays, obviously, that we did not do our job as well as we should have. And then there was obviously a lot of plays that are just kind of completely out of our control. And so it was kind of a mixture of all of it. But I thought, honestly, I thought that for the most part, we ran the ball pretty well. That was if you take away some of the sacks, we have 120, 125 rushing yards, which would have been our best of the season. I think we still finished with 91. Correct. Even with all the negative plays and the sacks. And we had 6 runs over 10 yards, which was the most by far this year. And so there are some sprinkled in semi-bright spots where it's like, okay, we made some steps forward. It's like it was our biggest rushing output, but then also at the same time, it gets overshadowed by just how poor of a game it was overall, which, that's the reality of it. And so, that's kind of what, a day like today is to go and kind of scrape this game down and take everything you can from it, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And make your adjustments for this week to, have a bounce back game against Texas Tech.
Now, speaking of Texas Tech, we'll talk about that coming up next. I want to get some of your thoughts as you guys turn your attention to hopefully beating the Red Raiders, getting back into the win column. Before we do that, though, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel for a moment here. Now, FanDuel's been working for a few months now. The best part is with NFL ongoing right now, you can have a lot of fun this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you bet $200. You can get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose on your original bet. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, now is the perfect time to get in on it. And the app is very easy to use, And there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and many, many more. So take advantage today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. Once again, it's at FanDuel.com/lockedon and take advantage of that offer. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars a part of your routine. Thank you for being everydayers with us right here on the podcast. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day whenever you watch this. Continuing on here with Connor Pay. And Connor, so now that you guys turn your attention to Texas Tech, we learned this week that you guys are going to have a couple of players on the defensive side of the football that are done for the year. One of them is a guy I think you're pretty familiar with. You've been there together for quite a while in Ben Bywater. Obviously, Tanner Wall also underwent surgery that's going to cost him the rest of the season. How difficult is it to see teammates, even if they might not play on your side of the football, go down due to injury?
I mean, it sucks. It's never fun ever to watch your teammates go through that. Especially guys like Ben and Tanner who have worked so hard all off season long to put themselves in a position to help our team. And then to just have it end that way, this will be Ben's second labrum surgery in the last 2 years, which that just sucks. There's no other way to go about it other to just realize that, it's kind of a reality of the game, as crappy as it is. And, for someone like me who's been pretty blessed to not really have any major injuries, anything that's kept me off the field, knock on wood.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to knock on wood for you right now. Let's go.
It's heartbreaking to see those guys because what we see that everyone doesn't see is the 6 a.m.s all off season long, the grind of the off season and spring ball and everything leading up to them to play well this season. And then to kind of have that taken away from them is heartbreaking.
Now, you mentioned the fact that you guys are looking towards Texas Tech, and it's time to turn the page and obviously get ready for this one. With the Red Raiders, there's some history here, but it's very sparse. The only other time that BYU and Texas Tech have played, do you know the only other time, Connor, before I throw this out?
The only other, it had to have been a bowl game.
It's not a bowl game, actually.
Really?
Yeah. It goes back a long way.
I'm going to guess 1964.
1940.
Oh, all right. Not even close.
It's been a minute. And Texas Tech actually won that game. It was played in Lubbock. It was a close game, though, 21-20, the only time that the Red Raiders and the Cougars have played one another. It's actually kind of funny. It's been that long, and this will be their first ever trip to Provo, Utah. But what are you expecting from Texas Tech in this game? Because similar to Kansas State, and I know this doesn't affect you because you play offense, and it's also an offensive issue, they could be having a backup, maybe their third string quarterback start the game for them when they come to Provo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't really hope that that's going to change anything, as you learned this the last week, right? There's great quarterbacks across this entire league, regardless of where they're at on the depth chart. But I think Texas Tech is a good team. They've had some games where they didn't play very well, but also, they beat Baylor pretty good last week, and they have a strong, stout defense, another really good nose tackle, and so, I think every single game is just going to be a dogfight. That's what conference play is. That's what it's meant to be. That's what you want as a player. And so they're trying to ride the momentum, of that Baylor game and keep building on it. And so I'm expecting them to come out and play hard, and they do a lot of really good things.
I'm going to lob a question that was lobbed at your head coach, Kalani Sitake, during his weekly press conference. I'm going to get your response. I'm going to see if it matches up with what he answered. And you may have heard the answer already, but nonetheless, so the question was asked last year in October. Obviously, you guys went 0 in the month. You went 0-4 last year. It was a really, really tough month. A lot of things spiraled for this football program. And so the question was posed to Kalani, and I'm going to pose it to you here. You're now 0-1 in the month of October. You've not won a game in the month of October since 2021. What makes this October different and maybe you guys better prepared to absorb this October and some of the issues you've already faced versus last year?
Well, it's a completely different team. It's completely different leadership, completely different players. We were fractured in a lot of ways last year before October ever came.
Okay.
That's just when the issues surfaced. And I don't feel that at all with this team. And I think we're much more well-equipped, because of the guys who were here last year, and just because of the veteran transfers we brought in who've had success other places and know what it takes to be a great team. And so, I'm not worried about any of that. Our focus is all on just beating Texas Tech right now. And so, and I think that the response to the TCU game and how today, similar to how we kind of responded after we lost to Kansas, has been a positive one so far.
Now, Kalani answered in a little different way, but I actually really like that answer. I appreciate you kind of pointing that out. He answered the fact that it's now conference play. You guys are in the middle of a conference here, and literally every game the rest of the season has stakes on it. No matter, even if you guys do fall by the wayside to a degree, you can still play the role of spoiler, that type of stuff. He said that there are stakes on every game. As he kind of alluded to, when you guys were independent, if you got to 6 wins, you already knew what bowl game you were going to. If you had 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins on up, unless you really ran the table, you knew where you were going in the postseason.
Yeah.
It's a different feel this year.
No, for sure. And I think the fan base is still a little bit caught in independence mode where you lose one game and the sky is falling.
Mm-hmm.
We're still right. It's early in the season. We're right in the middle of the conference standings. Like, so much can change in 6 games. So much, and that's, I've mentioned it before. There were 8 teams competing for the conference championship spot in November last year for the Big 12. And so, it's like, yeah, we played like crap against TCU and it was really embarrassing, but there's so much to get better at and so much to improve for. Because of, now that we're in a conference. And I think that definitely adds an element to it where, the loss against Oregon last year kind of, that was kind of deflating for us because, like, now we knew that unless a lot of things happened, we weren't really going to go to a very good bowl game. And, sometimes that can be a little bit challenging mentally to deal with, knowing that no matter what you do, really, you're still going to end up in somewhere like freaking Shreveport, Louisiana, or New Mexico. And New Mexico is actually fine. Shreveport is terrible, but New Mexico is actually not bad at all. But and so I think that definitely plays a role. And it's like, hey, we get back in the win column this week. We're 2-2 in conference play. We're right in the middle of the pack, and you can still do a lot of damage from that position.
Yeah, I think absolutely amen to that. Now, homecoming is this week for BYU, and I played homecoming football games in high school, and it's a different feel in high school, homecoming versus homecoming in college.
For sure.
What's been your experience with homecoming games at the collegiate level?
I had no idea this was the homecoming game until you just said that.
I kind of figured as much. I figured I'd lob that one at you.
I have no freaking clue. I don't know what homecoming means at BYU. Does it mean anything? I don't know. Do they have any events? I don't know. Not going to go regardless. And so I have no idea what. Yeah, it definitely doesn't carry the significance that it did in high school, I guess.
Well, Matt, that's kind of the same thought. I asked Kalani that question. Like, you guys got a lot of events because they're having like the Big 12 has sent a bunch of people out here. They're having like a bunch of events around your guys' homecoming game. But Kalani's answer is similar to yours. Okay, it's homecoming, but we still got a football game to play. And that's our focus. We're out there to perform for football. The other stuff is all ancillary and I guess kind of around this, but the football game is the centerpiece.
Very much so. It's like, I mean, I don't care at all for homecoming.
Fair enough. All right, we will finish up this edition of the show with a couple more questions, some listener questions, as well as we typically do with Connor Pay. Before we do that, though, let's talk about our good friends over at eBay Motors. They've been working with us for now. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive, and that's courtesy of our friends at eBay Motors. They have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep it at peak performance levels, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED highlights, and many, many more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, my friends. You always find exactly what you're looking for, and it's all courtesy of eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit for your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Obviously, eligible items only, exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at UCCU. Of course, they have a new thing called Learn and Earn, my friends. The UCCU mobile banking app is paying your entire family to learn about money. Kids look to parents to become financially literate, and obviously us as parents or anybody out there doesn't always have the right answers. Learn and Earn breaks down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games like quizzes and trivia, and every time a family member completes a topic, you earn points that can accrue and be redeemed for gift cards to many, many stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and more. There's age-appropriate content for every member of the family. Y'all can compete against one another on leaderboards and track all of your progress. And it's all available inside the UCCU mobile banking app, so play at any time, anywhere. The more you play, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you earn. Learn and Earn, part of UCCU's award-winning Be Money Smart Youth Banking Program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun while becoming more financially literate together. It's all courtesy of UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars a part of your day. And as we get close to the finish of this weekly edition with Connor Pay, Connor, by the way, I had a well-known member of the BYU athletic department stop me in the hall the other day. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to out them. I don't think they necessarily want their name out there. But they said, Jake, I just want to say Connor Pay has been awesome on your podcast. I was stunned they even watched the podcast, but they gave you a compliment. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate it. It's probably not very common for especially athletic administration to want to compliment me. So that's good.
Are you a malcontent, Connor?
No, I'm not a malcontent. I just think everybody has room to improve.
Fair enough.
And they come and demand and expect a lot from us. So in return, I demand and expect a lot from them. And they aren't necessarily fans of being on the receiving end of that. They like to ask for things. They don't like to do things.
Hey, keeping them accountable.
But I love them. They're great. Good. Tom is a freaking stud. Mm-hmm. Best athletic director in the country. And so I'm really appreciative of those guys. So I'm just joking around, kind of.
Hey. You're keeping them accountable. That's all that really matters. All right. So first question, obviously coming in, I got this from no less, I think 5 different people. It came in via text, comments on YouTube, and also via Twitter, Connor. People want to know what happened on that screen pass when LJ shoved you into the TCU defender. What happened there?
I had no idea that even happened till I watched the film. I just, those screens are kind of all about timing. And so I kind of was tempering myself because I didn't want to release too quick. Because if I shot out there, that guy would have been able to make a move on me and wouldn't have given LJ a chance. So I was kind of tempering him. I kind of felt him behind me. Mm-hmm. But, I was going to try to launch myself at that guy regardless. And we kind of timed it up perfect to where right when I was going to attack the guy, LJ shoved me in the back. So I didn't even notice it. But then watching it on tape, I was like, oh, yeah, he gave me a good little shove. That was nice. But, in the moment, I didn't even feel him back there.
Okay. Well, I just trust me. I got a bunch of different people that reaching out. So I was like, you know what? We're going to start there with our listener questions this week. Now, number 2, and it relates because I've talked on this podcast. I recently had a son. He's doing great, by the way. So thank you to all of you who have reached out, the well wishes, all that type of stuff. But they asked me to. So the question came in via Ethan. This actually coming 2 weeks ago. It was one of the questions he did not get to last week, Connor. And he asked this question. He's like, "Okay, I need you to ask Connor Pay, who is the most eligible unit in terms of like this, like quarterbacks, offensive line? Who is the most eligible unit in terms of dating on the BYU campus? And he says, I want Connor to defend his offensive lineman.
An entire unit?
Or you can do individuals if you want.
Oh, man.
Who's the most eligible bachelor besides yourself, obviously?
I mean, I have to go with my boys on the O-line. When I think of the group with the least amount of red flags, it's the O-line by a mile.
Okay.
And there's the rare exceptions in some of those other groups. I'd put Keaton in that category. The Talmadge Gunthers of the world, which there may not be a more saintly human being on this planet.
Well, Talmadge is like 2 or 3 kids at this point already anyway.
Yeah, naturally. God was like, okay, this is about as close to perfect as we're going to get, so I might as well have him be teaching some other younglings how to live this life. But, everyone else, I'd just be worried. So, I don't know. I think I'm definitely going to have to go with my O-line boys for sure.
Okay, so I guess that lends itself to the question: do you guys set each other up in a way? Do you guys like try and like arrange for dates and that type of stuff, or is that just
not like setting up people together? That hasn't happened a whole lot, maybe a few times. But like when we do have girls that we're hanging out with, we'll go on dates together on like either group dates or double dates if it's just a couple of you.
Okay.
But no, there's not a lot of like playing Cupid in the O-line room. So. And plus, I don't know. You got some tough material to work with, so I don't know if I don't know if it's possible to play Cupid in the O-line room.
Well,
but I think once you get past the obesity and the looks, man, we're all just great guys.
Hey, I love that answer. I don't know. Do you know who Jake Caressa is by chance?
Yes. I don't know him like well, but I know who he is.
Former BYU offensive lineman. I've gotten to know him fairly well. He played in the early 2000s for BYU. He always liked to describe himself, and he still uses this to this day. I probably could get him on this podcast, and he'd still say it. He always described himself as big, sexy, walking around BYU campus. So, you do what you got to do.
I mean, he said it, not me, but I'm not going to dispute it.
All right. Fair enough. All right, let's see. We got time for probably one more here. This one comes in. Let me click on this right here. Comes in via David, and David asked this: can you ask Connor in terms of his favorite thing about being at BYU, whether it's a class, I don't know, anything. What has been some of your maybe favorite moments and things you've done while you've been a student athlete at BYU?
Outside of football, I'm guessing, probably.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it'd be outside of football, correct.
Well, it's definitely not going to be anything school related. I guess outside of business school. The business school is great. The GEs are a nightmare.
Sure.
I think my favorite part about being at BYU, I guess it is. I lied. It is related to school. Is because we're a private university, we can teach the gospel in all those different class settings, which I think has been really cool. We kind of come into an academic setting, especially a university setting, and still have teachers, relate concepts that we're learning about to the gospel.
Okay.
Which for me as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints I enjoy that a lot. Just because I feel like it helps bring kind of a natural balance to my life a little bit. Where because of the environment BYU provides, you don't have to go out of your way to keep the gospel a focal point. That you're surrounded by people who are going to help you do it, professors included. And I think that's why so many people are attracted to BYU, regardless of your faith or your denomination, just because, there's just something about being around believing people, whether those beliefs are the same or not, there's a difference. And you go to other campuses and especially colleges, universities, belief in God is just it's not a thing in most places. Most kids don't care, especially at college ages. And so it's a really unique place in that aspect. And I'd have to say that that's probably my favorite thing about being a student athlete at BYU is the blending of a university education that's top notch, but also with an intertwined, sometimes you don't even realize it in the moment, but gospel education as well.
Can we bottle that and send that out to every possible recruit that BYU? That was a phenomenal answer, sir.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I pulled that right out of my butt, so I'm glad it was a good answer.
I'm just saying, Kalani Sitake, Aaron Roderick, any of these coaches who went on the recruiting trail, I'm going to send that clip to them and say, hey, you can use this as a testimonial.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Well,
send me the royalties on it.
Yeah, there you go.
In this age of NIL, you can't do that for free. Sorry.
Bingo. Pal. You are a smart man, Connor Pay. I like that. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of BYU Football with Connor Pay. Of course, we'll be back next week talking about whatever happens against Texas Tech. And then a big one, Connor, headed to Texas a week from Saturday. We'll break all that down next week. By the way, I do this all the time. Anything else you need to get off your chest before we go on today's show?
Anything I need to get off my chest? There's a lot of things I want to get off my chest, but they're not appropriate for the show, I don't think.
Keep them PG rated, okay? That's
yeah, no, nothing in the PG category.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe if you get an NIL deal that's sweet enough, Connor will give you the PG-13 version. How about that?
Yeah, maybe we'll just have to release a special episode that's marked TV MA.
We'll see what we can do. Well, Connor, thanks as always. See you next week, all right?
Thank you. Always a blast.
All right, there you go. That's Connor Pay. Of course, I'm Jay Catch. A big thank you for all your support of the podcast, as always. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow talking all things BYU sports. It's a crossover edition of the podcast tomorrow. Chris LaVell from Locked On Red Raiders joins me to talk about Texas Tech and BYU from his perspective, and obviously mine as well. We'll get to that on tomorrow's edition of the podcast. A big thank you once again for making it your first listen of the day, and thank you for being everydayers with us right here on Locked On Cougars. See ya.